Hi everybody. I have just had the idea since I got one done and it really turned out nice that I would show how I take my almost 10-year-old Ariat boots that when I buy cowboy boots, they are, no matter how pretty they are, they're boots for working. I mean, especially if it's a company that's known for being able to handle it. I will keep them forever until they completely fall apart, and as you can see, the soles are nowhere near giving up yet. So to keep the rest of the boot looking nice, I haven't done this in a while, so got my Bick 4, and what it says on the instructions is to just apply it liberally and let it sit until it dries, then buff it off. That's wonderful if you do it all the time. It's been a while since I've done these boots. My daughter wants to wear them to the rodeo, so I need to get them back into condition, and you can see just how sad this leather is right now, because they've been sitting on the porch pretty much all winter, because cowboy boots and ice don't mix for me. So I've done one already. What I have figured out to do over the years of having the same problem is to rub it on first, just getting it worked in really well, just like you would a normal shoe polish. So I'll sit here and I'll get into all the little nooks and crannies with a little bit and rub it in really well so that there isn't any pooling on top. What I want to do is open the leather up. I want it to get just moist enough that it's more receptive to the layer of Bick 4 that I'm going to put on after this for soaking in. Otherwise, you can end up with spots that just dry with globs. You can get areas that, especially like this, that have cutouts. I've had it get stuck in there before and dry in there, and then you have to go in with a toothpick and get it out because it looks like snot and it's really gross. So what I do, everybody does theirs differently, but for those people who are watching this to find out what I do for my boots, my family's boots, all of our leather stuff, if it's sat for a while and is looking really sad like this is step 1 for me. I rub it in nice and slow, just like you're rubbing lotion into dry skin, because that's essentially what you're doing. This is a conditioning lotion. Leather is animal skin. So to open it up and get it a little, you can already kind of see the difference between that and the top part that I haven't done. And these aren't even completely polished yet. This is just the beginning of step 1. I work in small batches, just a small little amount like that. I'm just using an old wash rag that we used to clean up spilled Kool-Aid once upon a time that has holes in it and stains on it, and once I grew smart enough to not have white wash rags anymore, they became wonderful rags for doing things because bleach. And the terry cloth works really nicely because it's soft, and the nap on it gets into all the little crevices, which these boots have a lot of little crevices. There's a lot of detail work on them. I got them, again, mostly because the brand came highly recommended by the store I was buying them at, and they said that they were a good quality compared to what I was used to wearing that were a bit out of my price range since their cost had gone up. And the boot store gave me these as an alternative, and This was one of the only pairs in brown, because I had black boots already. I wanted a pair of brown. That's how I ended up with my only pair of Ariat boots. And I have been trying to take good care of them, but I don't wear them as often as I used to. My daughter asked very nicely, now that her feet are the same size, if she could borrow my boots when I told her that getting her own pair was going to be out of the budget. And so I agreed, saying that I would get them all cleaned up and polished, and she was more than happy to use Mom's expensive boots, not realizing they're almost as old as she is, or probably not caring. This is the child who loves to go thrift store shopping. So I'll continue just rubbing this in all the way around the boot, and then I'll come back and show you how I do the liberal application for it to sit before the buffing comes, because this takes a while. Alright, already you can see the difference that just a light rubbing of Bick 4 has done to smooth the grain of the leather. Now it's time to do the heavy-duty application. Now, since you're going to buff this off, I think of this as car wax. You're going to put it on thick enough that there's enough of it there to dry, soak in, dry, and then you can buff it off. It's like grout or car wax. You put it on, and what I do, again, everyone has their own little methods. What I do is I get a good sized spot and I just kind of dab, because you'll be rubbing when you buff it, and also when you rub and wipe, you'll be wiping away what you just put down. Otherwise, with just dabbing it, you're applying, but you're lifting straight off, so it's staying right there. And then once you kind of start to hear it doing its little sticky thing, if anybody's painted walls, you know that sound when it starts to lift the paint off with your roller and you need to refill. That's the sound that you're looking for. Kind of a sticky sound. You can ease around a little bit and give a good press, especially if you're using a terry cloth, because it'll soak into your cloth too a little bit, so you can always squeeze just a little bit more out than you think is in there. You want to be especially careful. I'm terrible at scuffing the toes of my boots, especially when they're squared off and pointed like that, so I'm always really careful to not rub on that area. So I don't want to harm the leather that's already traumatized. And then after I get it all conditioned and treated and buffed, I'll go in with a little bit of dark shoe polish and conceal that spot just a little bit. But you see how I'm just dabbing it on. I put kind of a decent sized glob on and just dab it on. Again, you don't want it to pool, because then it'll dry in chunks, and that will cause problems when you want to buff it out later. And it could settle into the cracks, and mold and whatnot can grow there. So you just press it in nice. Make sure you've got it. I do it in sections. I'll do the toe section up to the seams, and then I'll start working on one front bend to seam. Then I'll work on the little strap part, and then I'll go to the back fold down to the seam, do the heel section, which for some people this is where most of their stuff and wear is. My boots are odd for some reason, in that I seem to never, even though I kick really hard and pry them on things to get them off sometimes when I've gotten my feet wet in my boots and they get stuck. But I don't seem to ever really beat up the back ends of my boots too badly. So that's an odd thing about how boots wear on me, which is beside the point. None of you asked, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So I just keep dabbing this on, and I'm going to do that all over, trying to be careful not to rub or dab too much on the spots that I've already put some on. If I look back on a section like here where I had just done this and it's already starting to look a little dry in places, that's obviously the leather is dry and is soaking it up faster. So I will go over it, and I'll look 2 or 3 times as I'm going around the boot just to make sure and keep an eye on spots just to see, you know, oh, this spot looks a little bit dry, I'm going to put a little bit more on that, because you want to fully condition the leather, not just gloss over everything once. You want to be really careful that no matter what that section of leather needs, it's getting. You want to be able to supply everything that it needs. And that's where this Bick 4 is wonderful. I had never used it before I bought these boots, and it came highly recommended by the boot shop. I'd always just used regular shoe polish or saddle soap or mink oil, that kind of stuff. And someone said to try this, and I have been in love ever since. It doesn't have a weird smell. It doesn't leave a weird film. It's literally just like a lotion, and it leaves the leather feeling really soft. And this leather, these boots have always been very, very bendable and buttery and just wonderful and comfortable ever since the very beginning. And no matter how long I let them sit in between wearing, in between seasons, it seems that the Bick 4 will rejuvenate this leather right back to its wonderful, bendable, flexible, comfortable nature. It leaves it as soft as anything I've ever had that was leather. And like I said, it doesn't have a very strong smell. It's really safe and wonderful. I'm never worried about the rags being out or going in my washing machine. I never have to worry about it reacting with anything because it's not really a chemical. It's all just a very wonderful product, and I wish they'd pay me, but they haven't yet. Or at least, you know, hey, free bottle, anybody, please? But no, this is not an advertisement in any way, but it's definitely a product that I was glad someone mentioned to me, and I'm hoping that maybe I can mention it to somebody else who has never used it before, has some of the same problems as I do, and wants something that will treat their shoes without, or their boots without leaving weird stains on things, or having you have to do it outside because it smells. I remember as a kid, every time my mom would polish our boots or anything, she'd have to sit outside in the garage and do it because it smelled that bad. It was awful. And that's kind of why I never bothered with any of that kind of polish because of the smell. I would go toward the mink oil, which in itself had kind of a strange smell, and the saddle soap always kind of left everything just a little bit greasy, and even if you'd buff it off and rub it in really well, it would still, yeah, it was strange. So this is the first product that I've ever used that didn't have any of those downfalls or any of those cons, any of those lower points. So I'm glad someone mentioned it to me to try. I'm going to mention it to anybody that bothers looking at this channel or looking at this video. It's something that came highly recommended to me, and I'm going to highly recommend it to everybody else. It's not super expensive. I got it at our local Farm and Fleet. It's not a national chain, it's just a local Farm and Fleet store. But this bottle, which is 8 fluid ounces, so it's palm size. I've had a bigger bottle before, I think it was like a 12, but this will do quite a bit. I mean, you're not using very much at all. This cost me $7, $6.99 and then tax, so it was $7 and change for this, and it will last for a long time. I'm not even sure. Goodness, I bought the 12-ounce bottle when I bought the boots, and that was maybe 9 years ago, and it's still maybe just below half full. When we reorganized things, it got put somewhere safe, which means I don't know where it is now. So I went out and bought myself another little bottle because this stuff is awesome. I'm going to send it with my daughter, so if she wants to do anything to the boots, then she has her own bottle, because I fully anticipate finding mine at some point now that I've bought a replacement, because that's how Murphy's Law works. But after this step, once you've looked around and made sure that everything is still kind of damp all the way around and no spots are soaking in more than others, you're going to set the boots down. You're going to let them dry for a while. I let them sit for a couple hours. Don't touch them. I don't even mess with them. It's like watching a pot and waiting for it to boil. It'll never boil. You set the boots down, you ignore them for a while. They'll dry. Come back. If nothing is damp to the touch, then you can go over it and just give it a nice buff. Now, I use, in case I forget to turn this camera back on, to buff, I use, it used to be a dish towel. It's just one of those flour sack towels because it's a really soft cotton. And this is just one that got some holes in it over the years and whatnot, and I've gotten replacements. So I took a couple of them to use as shoe polishing cloths. The other thing that works really well for doing this are cloth baby diapers. I bought a package of those to use as shoe polishing cloths. Those work really well as well because they're soft. Obviously, they're going to be touching a baby's skin closely. So, use cloth baby diapers. Those work just the same. If you don't, depending on what's cheaper, you can get the cloth baby diapers, I think, as singles or in packs of 3, whereas the towels, they're usually in 5s or 10s, and they might be a little bit more expensive. They're also bigger and a little bit bulkier, harder to handle. The diapers are smaller, so they work really well. Just fold them in half, and you've got just the perfect size. These are a little bit bigger, but again, it's what I have right here on hand, what I grabbed out of the rag bag. Something that's soft and more smooth, not nappy like the terry cloth that you're using to apply. Because that nap, even though it gets into the crevices and whatnot, it can also rub a little too hard if you're buffing. So when you're buffing, you want to use a little bit smoother cloth. You could use a chamois cloth. You could use microfiber. Any of those would work. I've got all of them. I've used all of them in the past There's no real huge benefit to one over another. You just want to use something a little bit softer, and when you buff, just go nice circular motions. Don't want to press too hard, but you just want to buff, just like you would buff the wax off of a car. You really shouldn't get a whole lot of residue on the cloth that you're buffing with. Keep an eye out, again, if your boots have these cutouts or along your seams where it could have pooled a little bit. When it dries, it will dry white. The Bick 4 will dry, it goes on kind of a clearer color. When it dries, it will dry white, so you'll see it. If you see any of those lines on there, just fingernail or fold it into a nice edge and give it a nice little rub along wherever you see that. Again, either the tip of a toothbrush or a toothpick or something will usually get it out of these cutouts fairly well, and then just buff around it again. It's a really simple process, time consuming, just because if you want to do it right and you want to do it well, you're going to spend the time on it. And it's like anything in life. If it's easy, it's not worth it. If it's worth it, it's not going to be easy. That's mom advice for the day. If it's easy, it's not going to be worth it. If it's worth it, it's not going to be easy. Remember that. So, if you want your boots to last, you need to take care of them. And if you cheat or cut out steps or slack in your taking care of things, they're not going to last. So if you're spending money on a brand name like Ariat for boots, you're going to want to take care of them because you're not going to want to have to pay to replace them. A lot cheaper to buy a $7 bottle than it is to replace a pair of Ariat boots. That's all I'm going to say. I don't even remember how much these cost, but I know they set my husband back a pretty penny because I did not want to get them at the price they were. And they were cheaper than the boots that I was used to getting, which were Tony Llamas. So, that's another story. That's the Dutch in me. Being a little bit cheap, that's okay. But you get what you pay for, and if you take care of it, it will last for years. These, like I said, they're at least 9 years old. And they still look like this. Yes, I've scuffed this just a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, it just adds character to the boots. I buy boots not as showpieces. I buy boots to wear to work in. These are workhorse boots. These are go walking through the fairs and mud and things that smell that are not mud that I'm not going to say on camera. You go through it all. And they may look nice, but when I wear them, they're not showpieces. These are worn because cowboy boots are work boots to me. And if they look nice, great. If they don't, they're still going to do the same job. They're going to protect my feet from animals who want to try to crush them. So, these have been worn for working. They've been worn to concerts and everything else and worn to look nice. But they're also worn to work. And the way I can do both with them is by taking care of them. Same for you. When you're taking care of your shoes and your boots and your clothing and anything that you own, if you take care of it, it'll last. If you buy a good reputable brand and you look into it first and find something that is meant to last, you might spend a little bit more, but you won't have to replace it as soon. So, that's mom wisdom number 2. You get what you pay for. That's what my mom always said. And I still live by that to this day. If it's something that you want to have last, spend a little bit in the beginning, and it will pay for itself multiple times over. You can't tell once I get these polished up completely, even now, even halfway, you cannot tell that these are 10-year-old boots. You really can't. My camera is really awful because I'm just using the laptop camera right now. But these aren't creases or anything bad. This is just the natural grain of the leather, honestly. And it's just as buttery soft and beautiful as it was the day I bought them. You are not going to have this if you don't take care of them. So, this is what I do for taking care of my leather products, especially my cowboy boots. If I opened the door to you discovering how great this product is for maintaining your leather products, it doesn't waterproof. It's, it protects as far as the fact that it will condition it, it'll clean, it'll polish it. It's good for it. It's not a water repellent. It's not going to be a waterproofing. It's not going to protect your boots from horrible element issues. If you're going to be wearing them in anything more dangerous than that, you can buy other products that are for waterproofing. But if you're just going to wear them and clean them right away when you get them dirty, dry them really well when you get them wet, if you're caught out in a rainstorm with a tornado and you're at a concert and you have to walk a mile to your car. Yes, these boots have survived that twice. If that happens, get them dry right away. I stuffed mine with newspapers and set them in front of a fan. That's how I dried mine. Once they were relatively dry, I put a coat of Bick 4 on. I stuffed towels inside of them, let them sit, because I wanted to maintain the shape of the boots. So that's why I stuffed them a little bit too. That and to help dry out the soles on the inside. And once they had dried completely, then I did the full treatment of liberal application and buffing. And honestly, they have never shown any signs of ill effect from being completely drenched with water. I mean, we were walking through ankle deep water, and it was pouring buckets on us, literally drenched head to toe. It took us almost 45 minutes to walk to the vehicle the whole time we were walking through water and having water poured on us. These were as wet as if I had jumped in the lake. And because I take care of them and have taken care of them, they have never suffered from those random... I'm not doing it all the time, obviously. I'm not working in those kind of conditions with these boots on. But that I'm just saying, if it happens and you've taken good care of your boots and used products on them that condition them and make them more durable, they're going to last and they're not going to suffer from those occasional instances of ill weather. So, take care of your stuff, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Mama Llama,